parts of the wiper motor and the mounting. So we have the mounting plate that goes underneath the dashboard. We have the wiper mechanism with the gears in it. We have the motor in the motor housing. We have a new bracket to mount to the mounting plate. We have the internal electronics with the carbon brushes. We have the rack system with the guides and a wiper wheel box. So I've restored everything. I've painted the mounting plates and the motor housing. We've cleaned up the wiper motor itself and clear coated it. Everything was in quite good condition. The only thing that's wrong is on the rack. There's a piece missing right at the place where the wheel box would go. So we have to replace this. I also have new chrome for on here. This is the old one, but I have new ones laying around. I have a new mounting bracket with rubbers, new hardware. All the rest is okay. Now to replace the rack, you can buy a new rack, but it comes in a complete length of I think about 1.5 meters, which is too long because the rack on Europa is very short. So I've measured the rack length and I've tacked it on here with my welder so that the windings don't slip off. So now I just have to cut it off using an angle grinder, and then I have a new rack to go in. Okay, so this is the new wiper motor rack. This is the old one. You can see it's exactly the same length. This one has the piece missing, so we can get rid of this one. And now we can put some things apart. I'm going to start by reassembling the actual mechanism. So I'll put all of the painted parts to one side, and then we'll start by assembling everything step by step. I didn't film the disassembly stage because if you see me assembling this, then you know how it goes together as well. So the first thing to do is to reinstall the rack. Now I'm going to do dry assembly first because it all has to be filled with grease on the inside to lube all of the gears and all of the moving parts of the rack. So when you take it apart, it's filled with 40-50-year-old grease. You have to clean it out completely. So now we'll have to fill it with grease again, but I'm just going to do a quick dry assembly to make sure everything's okay. So we take the rack, see, that's why you do a dry assembly, to make sure that it fits, because it has to take a little bit of a bend through the guide, and I might have to file the top off a little bit, because that's where the outer winding has been welded to the inner core. That's what I did. So I have to file it off a little bit so I can take the little bend in here. Okay, so I'm going to correct this and I'll check back with you in a minute. Alright, after mucking about, it was apparent that the problem wasn't on the rack, but it was on this little tube. I might have pinched it while disassembling, but the old rack wouldn't fit either. So I had to file it smooth a little bit on the inside, and now the rack passes through without a problem. It's still a bit stiff, but there will be some grease in it to smoothen it out. It has to go through this nut, then through the guide or whatever it's called, then it will need to go in here, like so. then we have this arm on here. Like so, and then this little circlip will retain this arm. When the motor goes in from the top, it will drive this gear and it will translate the rotation motion to this motion. So now we'll take it all apart. We'll put a lot of grease in here to make sure that it will run cool and smooth, and then we'll put it all back together. So I think it'll be enough grease for now. So we're going to install the rack in here, and then we can attach the electronics, and then we have to grease the little gear on the actual motor that will mesh with the big gear inside of this. Now we need to attach the circlip onto there. Clean up the motor side of the fan a little bit. Oh, that's the circlip that broke in half, so that's not a good thing. So now we'll have to stop doing this until I can find a circlip that will fit. So I'll just start by installing the electronics, maybe mounting the motor. So we can install the motor. So we put the motor in the housing, make sure that it seats in the bearing on top. Might grease this a little bit. So we have to install the wheel box on the rack using the other part of the guide. I have to fill this with grease as well. Like so, and then it should actually mount on here. Now I don't actually know in which way it has to go. It has to go on like this, but not quite sure in which direction it should point. So I'll put it on, but I'll keep it fairly loose so I can adjust it if necessary. I'll fill it with grease and then it should slide on like that. So now we'll try to feed it on here, like so. should fit on so. This is the little plate that should keep everything in place. Like so. Then of course you have the spacer and your chrome bits to mount on the front, but we'll have to wait a minute until I find a circlip that will fit on here, and then we can close this back up. So we're back again. I've looked at my supplies and I've found a little spring clip that will fit. So we'll remove the little cover. Now I won't try to expand it as I did with the one that broke, so I'll just try to push it on. I think it should be in. Okay, so the entire motor and rack has been assembled. I've added the wheel box. As I said before, the direction of the wheel box isn't correct, but I can rotate it later if I have to. And the only thing that's missing on here is this little spacer that will mount it to the underside of the cowl, the scuttle. So I have that. Then we have the chrome bits that go on the outside. Now these are the old ones. I'm just going to use this to keep this all together. But I have new ones to go on the car. Okay. So the next thing to do is to mount this to the bracket that goes underneath the dashboard. So this is the bracket and it mounts under the dash like this. This will mount to the bulkhead on the front, and this will bolt underneath the dash. So the wiper motor needs to go on here. I have this bracket that will bolt on. Okay, so it's been bolted down. Hopefully it's a bit centered and will it actually line up with the hole in the dash. If not, I'll have to remove the bracket and then try it in a different way. But I think it should be fine. The only thing that I need to do now is get some new bolts with a dome head to mount the brackets to the dash and the bulkhead, because these are completely gone and they're very difficult to get out. So I'll get some hex heads with a dome to bolt it on, and then we'll be good to go. So it will mount underneath the dash like this. This will mount to the bulkhead, this will mount underneath the dash, and then this will go out the top. Okay, so this was my memory letting me down. This is the way I mounted it. It should be the other way around. Once the bracket is here, the outlet for the wiper is on the left. So when it's mounted like this, the rack needs to come out towards this side, and then it will go through the scuttle there. So we need to take this apart, switch the motor around, and hopefully it will fit that. So I've test fitted it and it fits perfectly. It comes out the correct way. all the holes line up. It's very good. The only downside that I'm finding is because I'm using aerosols to paint all of these pieces, and because they're all small batches, all small parts, I cannot actually use my complete spray system for just a few pieces. I find that the paint chips very easily, so I've just test fitted it, and you have some rough fiberglass underneath the dash, which is obvious. And then you get some paint chips, which means that the clear coat, the paint and the primer just chip off. Only the rust converter is sticking on. I'm not quite sure what I need to do about that. It's not something that I'm very happy with. These aren't critical parts, but it's a shame if you have to put everything back together and you know that these parts aren't really perfect, and they have a risk for getting rusty again. But we'll leave this for now, and I'll think about what I'm going to do with this. If I have to paint some of these brackets again, it's not really an issue, but it's not as ideal as I'd like it. But I'm happy that it fits, and I've been able to reuse the entire motor except from some small parts. So I'll leave you with this, and then I'll hopefully see you next time. So if you have any questions, you can post them below or send me an email to my website. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of the upcoming videos.